How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So the Yankees have won a series against the Houston Astros. So they have another game today, but they've already secured the series win. And what do you know? We have like half our team is rookies and prospects and young guys. And I feel like we've been saying this for a long time, but it's nice to see us winning games against good teams. And it's been a while since we've been able to actually witness this and enjoy this moment. We're out of playoff contention, essentially. We're 8.5 games back on the wild card unless a lot of other teams lose a lot of games and we win a lot of games. It's still looking like a very small chance that we even make the postseason, and that's obviously something that we've already come to conclusion and already kind of come to grips with. But I'll tell you what, some of these youngsters, Jason Dominguez specifically, he only has 2 hits in his first 2 games, which by most accounts is pretty solid. But the contact he's been making is really freaking good. He is making good contact, good plate decisions, good swing decisions, and ultimately that discipline is showing up. And you see it on an every bat at basis. You're like, okay, this guy has the quality to hit at the MLB level, and the more at bats you give him, the better he's going to get. He's very confident. He's obviously an athlete. He's looked fine in center field. But there's a possibility that this Yankee team has 4 starting rookies next year. I'm going to throw Oswald Peraza into the rookie kind of fold here because he really hasn't played that much at the MLB level, and they've kind of been like sporadically calling him up and demoting him and back and forth with him. So I'm going to say like they give him an actual opportunity to be a starter next year, or maybe a possibility that happens. But 4 rookies, is that something that we could actually see come to fruition in 2024, Ryan? What are you thinking so far about these guys, and is there a future where we see all of them start? We're talking about Jason Dominguez, Austin Wells, Everson Pereira, and Oswald Peraza.
Yeah, so, so far in the season, right, obviously guys like Pereira, Dominguez, Peraza, and Wells, we don't have a lot of information on them right now at the major league level, so it's a little bit difficult to judge what they've done so far, but it is certainly exciting to see them play, and we've seen some exciting things. You mentioned Peraza. It's pretty interesting. They had him try, and Aaron Boone actually publicly talked about this. They were trying to have him do something different with his, how he set up his load instead of a leg kick with a toe tap. And I thought that was stupid, and they changed it back to a leg kick yesterday, and he goes 3 for 4. So, I don't know why they changed a leg kick. It was working really well for him in AAA, but that's an encouraging sign. Pereira, Dominguez, Wells, at least in Pereira and Dominguez's case, you kind of expect them to struggle a bit. They hit the ball hard, yes, but they are pretty young. Like Pereira's 22, Dominguez especially, he's 20. Wells is 24, and he's looked pretty decent behind the plate. I'm so far so good on the results. The pitching staff has responded well to him back there, and I know that it's a small sample size. Number 1, and number 2, catcher ERA doesn't mean everything, but look at how Brito pitched, right? Look at how I know Severino kind of struggled, but Severino's kind of struggled all year. Look at how the bullpen reacted. Look at how Rodon threw yesterday, right? Like it does feel like, at least from a pitch calling standpoint, it's not bad, right? We'll see how the framing looks as we get a little bit more of an understanding as to what he is behind the plate. And then obviously the rookie who's been here the longest, Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe's had a pretty good rookie year, all things considered. Is it historic? No. But if historic is your bar for good, then maybe we're expecting too much out of a guy. I don't think that's irrational to say. So far in the season, a 95 WRC plus what is it? Plus 14? Yeah, plus 15 defensive runs saved. Plus 3 outs above average. 22 stolen bases, just 5 caught stealing. So that's 22 for 27. 20 home runs, 18 doubles. So far, it's a pretty good year, right? In terms of wins above replacement, among position players, I believe he's 3rd in the American League according to F4 and 2nd according to Baseball Reference War. That's pretty good, right? So, among his peers, he's been a pretty good player. And I think that's important, right? You just wanted him to be pretty solid and have a pretty solid first season, which he's done. And I'm impressed. I'm impressed by this crop so far. You want to see a larger sample size, but going into 2024, a lot of your success is predicated on these guys succeeding. And if the Yankees drafted and developed the way that other teams across the league have kind of flashed, we've seen the Orioles, the Reds offensively have done a pretty good job with that. The Mariners on the pitching side of the ball. If the Yankees are able to get similar impacts, they're going to be really good next year, right? And that's kind of the direction baseball's headed. And I'll leave you with this. Alex, does it not feel like this league is trending towards more teams just being aggressive with prospects and giving those guys the call? How many teams are fueled by guys who've played maybe 30, 40 games at AA and AAA, right? Like the Braves, the Mariners, the Orioles. So, I don't think it's that unrealistic for 4 rookies, but kind of asking you, do you think the direction of this league is pointing towards rookies? And do you think that we're going to see more guys in the 2024 season outside of the pool that we have this year?
Yeah, when you look at I mean, I guess it's kind of relevant to the state of each individual team. You know, I mean, if you're a struggling team, you don't want to spend a lot of money, you're going to go to rookies, you're going to go to prospects. And for the Yankees, I kind of believe that they don't have much of a choice. We have so many bad contracts. We are not going to have a boatload of money to spend. I'm sure we will spend, but it has to be efficiently, and it has to be on the right players. We can't just spend aimlessly because we have the cash, and Brian Cashman's basically given a blank check to do whatever he wants. Now, I could see them going after a guy like Heimer Candelario, maybe to fill third base. I could see them making some efficient moves here for good players that aren't going to cost an arm and a leg. Like Cody Bellinger is going to cost an arm and a leg. He's going to get a huge deal this upcoming offseason. I don't think Hal Steinbrenner is going to let Cashman do that, because now you have Dominguez, who looks really good. And I think Dominguez is 20 years old, and he's going to be a really exciting young player for a very long time for this Yankee team. And I'm already penciling him as a starter in 2024. He is my starting center fielder next year. Like, I think a lot of people would agree with that. Maybe that's premature. I don't think so. I think the Yankees aren't going to spend big on Cody Bellinger, and I think Dominguez is ready. He looks the part of an MLB player. I mean, you look at his frame. That is the biggest 20-year-old I've ever seen in my life. That is the most freaking matured 20-year-old I've ever seen. He looks like he is 30 years old, has been working out. He looks like little Barry Bonds, little like Diddy Kong. It's really exciting to see this guy at this level of baseball at such a young age. I mean, it's kind of like, this is crazy. This is not what, you guys don't take this out of context, but like Juan Soto 6 years ago when he entered the MLB at 20 years old, he's about to be a free agent. I guess he entered at 21, maybe even a little bit older than Dominguez. That's the type of age, like that's the type of like frame he has. If he could be anything close to Juan Soto, we are going to be a really good team for a very long time. But obviously that would take a miracle. And ultimately, I think he has the skill set to be a tremendous player. A much better defender than Soto for what it's worth, but offensively there's still a lot left to be seen. Hopefully he can maintain that plate discipline and showcase what he can do. And this next month is going to be essential for his growth and development, and just gaining that confidence and those data points to say, okay, you need to improve a little bit here, you need to change this, you need to change that. And I think he's actually going to work and fix those problems. Dominguez to me is the kind of guy that like he identifies what's going wrong and he fixes it really quickly. And I think that that's something that gives him a lot of advantage over other players, is that he's really quick to make the changes he needs to make. And even if it takes a month or two, like you actually see the numbers start to shift. And you're starting to see with Volpe, it's taking a little bit longer because they kind of just expedited his process. And obviously they wanted him to play shortstop, and they put him into a really difficult position immediately, which I think is like trial by fire is good for some players. And Volpe has kind of taken that, and he has a 2020 season under his belt. He could be a 2030 season. And I feel like right now, his growth has been paramount, and he's a long-term piece on this team. He's our shortstop, guys. I don't know if you saw that play he made yesterday. Looked like freaking Derek Jeter. I still don't understand why people ultimately don't think he's a long-term shortstop. I mean, he's putting it on the field. Like, he's showing off what he can do. I don't know what else to say. Like, I think he's a shortstop long-term. I mean, if you disagree, I'd love to hear your reasoning. Maybe just saying he doesn't look like a shortstop isn't enough. You got to support it with something. Like, you got to give us some information if you're going to make the argument. So I'd love to hear it. I'd love to have a good conversation down in the YouTube comments, as always, my friends. But looking at the other prospects here, Everson Pereira, there's things he needs to work on. Good defensive player, good athlete. The strikeout rate's at about 36.5%. That's got to come down. But again, it's so early. Like, he's just getting his feet wet in the MLB, and we know he's an aggressive hitter. Ryan, when you're looking at Everson Pereira, what does he have to do to cement himself as a starter? I think right now he's probably looking more as like a first team reserve. Like, he's like that guy you plug and play if like Stanton needs to take a day off, or like, this guy gets hurt, this guy's not performing well, like that's the guy you go to instead of Oswaldo Cabrera in the outfield now. But what do you think Pereira needs to do to actually cement himself as a starter? Because that strikeout rate's got to come down. He's a very aggressive hitter. He goes after pitchers early in counts, but that gets him into trouble a little bit.
Yeah, so two things here. Number one, he's seeing a lot of breaking pitches. So he has seen 80 breaking pitches. He's seen 160 pitches total. That's 50%, right? That's a large, dosage of breaking pitches. Teams have identified, hey, this kid is going to swing a lot, as you mentioned, so we're going to make him swing a lot. And the easiest way to do that is to throw a really good breaking ball. And, I'm not saying, teams are doing something that's so unfair. No, I'm just pointing out that is something that teams have done. It's the right strategy, don't get me wrong, and I understand why they're doing it. But, he's going to have to make that adjustment. And if he can be a solid, like an okay hitter against breaking balls, he'll be an amazing player. And if you look at what he's done thus far, yes, 203 WOBA, not great, but he's actually underperformed outperforming his xWOBA. His xWOBA is 303. That's more league average. If you look at just quality of contact metrics, a 48% sweet spot rate, a 16% barrel rate, 429 expected weighted on base average on contact. That's really good. A 64% hard hit rate. And, yes, he does chase a lot. But if you look at his chase rate, just the raw chase rate number, it's 27.3%, which is manageable. And we saw in AAA, it kind of got better. The issue is the whiff rate, 44.7%. That's kind of come down, right? Now, I'm not trying to make that comparison, but Alex, we know of the last time an outfielder came up and, in their first stretch, they struck out like 40% of the time. And that guy is going to be probably a first ballot Hall of Famer wearing a New York Yankees hat when he goes into Cooperstown if he stays healthy. And I'm not saying that Everson Pereira is going to go into Cooperstown. That Everson Pereira, you should look at him the way you look at Aaron Judge. They're not the same player. Not remotely close, right? That's not a fair comparison to make. But the reason I'm making that comparison is to say that the start you get off to as a rookie oftentimes doesn't define who you are in your career. The best player on that 2016 Yankees team, you look at the young prospects, it was Gary Sanchez. The year before, it was Greg Bird. Like, there were legitimate reasons to believe both Greg Bird and Gary Sanchez entering the 2017 season was going to be the best. We're going to be better players than Aaron Judge. And that's not how things shaped out, right? So we want to wait for larger sample sizes, of course. Pereira is only 22 years old. We saw Volpe at 22 really struggle to start things off. But the things he has going for him, just the ability to absolutely destroy the baseball. As you mentioned, the defense in the outfield, he's looked solid in left field. He's made some pretty tough plays. If he's an above average defensive left fielder, that is huge for the Yankees because the Yankees have obviously not had that same situation with their left field play. You want to see fewer ground balls. He's hitting a 48% ground ball rate. If you get that number closer to 40%, that would be good. I think overall you're looking at a profile that on a quality of contact basis should work, but with fewer whiffs and just a couple of balls falling that haven't for him lately, he can really turn into one hell of a hitter. And I kind of want to pass this off to you like this. Everson Pereira, Jason Dominguez, Anthony Volpe, like, people forget these guys are going to be 23, 23, and 21 entering the 2024 season. A lot of guys contending for the Rookie of the Year this year are older than what they will be next year, right? You look at guys such as, not Gunnar Henderson. Gunnar Henderson's a young guy. But, you look at guys like Spencer Steer with the Reds. You look at guys like Matt McClain. These aren't, not saying these aren't young players, but these guys aren't, 19 or 20, right? And putting up these numbers. These guys were like college bats. Like, McClain's almost 25. He'll be 25 next August. He's 24 right now. These are, guys who have spent a while in college and have gotten, plenty of experience against guys who are close to Major League ready. These kids are young, right? These are young guys. These are guys who are going to take time to develop. We have to be patient with them. Really, the only guy in this group that profiles as an older prospect is Wells, right? And that's the guy you expect to get off to the best start, sure. But even then, he is still he just turned 24, and this is his first season. So I want to preach patience. I want to preach, just give them time. And I think Pereira is going to be a good case study of that because the talent is there. It's just a matter of can he refine it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, like you said, these guys are going to be really freaking young. And I think the argument here is, do you think the Yankees can turn things entirely around next year, or do you think they're going to need a little bit of time to get back on track? I can't see them. Look, the truth is simple. We need some of these prospects to play next year. You can't go out into free agency and plug every single position every single year and hope for the best, or go out and go and try and get Billy McKinney, like former top prospects, rework their entire swing, and then hope that they can become good players. Like, that doesn't always work. In fact, it usually doesn't work. So if you're if you're the front office, and we know Hal Steinbrenner said this yesterday or a couple days ago, and this was really interesting, by the way, Ryan, I found this to be pretty telling of what his thought process was. He was like, I'm not letting them do it. Remember when Hal Steinbrenner basically was like, we're not trading anybody at the deadline? I mean, he stepped in and literally told Cashman, you're not trading anybody. He was like, we have been trading too many players away. We've been losing too many of these trades. He kind of threw Cashman under the bus there. He was like, we have not been trading well. We have not been playing well. We have not been the acquisitions we have executed have been net negatives. So I find that really interesting that Steinbrenner stepped in and said, no, you're not doing anything. You're sitting still, and then we're recalibrating after this season. And we know one thing for sure. They're bringing in a third party to actually analyze the entire front office to see who's liable, who's responsible. And I think that's kind of a telling situation that there's going to be changes. We may not see the changes on the outside in terms of a personnel perspective, but they may slaughter that entire analytics room and replace it. You know what I mean? Like they might bring in guys that are evaluating analytics in a different way. So I'm really curious to see how they go about this. But right now, I think we're going to see some big changes, and I think that those big changes are going to happen right after the season ends because they want to get the new cast in place, the new analytics office. They want to get the new personnel in place to help them execute a free agency strategy and an offseason strategy immediately. So, but the problem is like you can't plug every position in free agency or via trades. Like you need some of these prospects to pan out. So I think my debate here, my side of it is like, even if we do struggle a little bit next year because we have a lot of youngsters playing, I think it promotes a much brighter future. Like, are you willing to mortgage next year and going out and spending or trading away a lot of prospects to try and plug positions? Are you willing to make that risk, take that risk and maybe further destroy our chances of like long-term success? Or are you willing to kind of suffer through some of the hiccups that the rookies are going to experience next season and kind of be like, look, if we could win with these guys, if these guys are winners, they are coming from a minor league system that freaking wins championships. These guys know how to win. It's just about doing it at the MLB level. So what is your preference? Do you think leveraging these prospects via trade, going out and signing free agents to kind of plug these positions, or a healthy blend of using these prospects, getting maybe one or two good free agent signings, nothing crazy, but guys that can plug a hole and play it well, and then maybe you trade some prospects that are not ready to perform at the MLB level yet, you maybe reinforce a starting pitching rotation, maybe bring in some depth with those guys. Like, how do you feel about the Yankees using prospects next year, with the idea that they could struggle and may be a little bit of a bumpy road? But even so, maybe we do make the postseason anyway. This season's been disastrous. I'd much rather see the prospects go struggle a little bit, just like Volpe. Like I enjoyed watching Volpe's growth because at least it promotes a good future instead of watching Billy McKinney, Bowers, Greg Allen get reps when they shouldn't have been. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so here's how I view it. I think you have to be opportunistic. I think that's the right word to use here. If something comes up and an opportunity pops up that requires you to deal prospects, but it's for something that you look at it and you're like, this could change the franchise, you got to say yes to that, right? And that's where I'm at, right? You're not trading like Everson Pereira for a rental. I'm going to hold that thought off for a second. You're not trading Everson Pereira for just any rental. Now, I'm going to just spit out a scenario, right? A hypothetical. I do not have sources. I just want to emphasize that. Nothing. I'm just spitting out a hypothetical here. The San Diego Padres are pretty bad. They have a lot of money tied up. They are entering the 2024 season coming off a bad year. Their owner has been bleeding money. The GM, AJ Preller, has, we could talk about what Brian Cashman has and hasn't done. AJ Preller hasn't done a lot in this league, and he's done a lot of spending and a lot of trading. You got to imagine his time might be up at the end of the season. If he gets fired and the Padres change directions and a certain free agent after the end of the 2024 season would become available, I'm not going to name names, but we know who I'm talking about. That's the type of player you're thinking about. All right, we have the future here, but he's that guy. He's Juan Soto, right? Like I'll trade those guys. It doesn't matter, right? Now, as you mentioned earlier with Cody Bellinger, are you throwing the bag at Cody Bellinger? Are the Yankees is the bag that they're, because remember, the Yankees they throw in a big contract kind of every other year, it feels like, right? They have when you think of the Aaron Judge year, last year they gave out the big contract to Aaron Judge. The year before that, they went cheap, right? Obviously, yes, they spent on Josh Donaldson, but it wasn't a large commitment long-term. It was a short-term commitment. And, of course, Isaiah kind of Fleffa served as a stopgap shortstop. They didn't shop in that market for shortstops. In 2020, they also weren't very active on the free agent market. Yes, they gave DJ a $90 million deal, but they weren't going out and spending at the top, right? They didn't go trade for Lindor because they didn't want to pay that contract. Because in 2019, they had just paid Garrett Cole, right? So, not this year, but next year, we're going to be looking at an offseason where the Yankees have a window to spend, right? You're going to already have Donaldson off the books this year. You're going to have Montas, Severino off the books this year. Next year, you're going to have Rizzo off the books. And you're getting closer to the end of that Aaron Hicks contract, a little bit closer to the end of that Stanton and DJ deals, or to the Stanton and DJ deals, which I think would have like 2 and 3 years left each. So, Alex, the way I look at it is these prospects are opportunities to either A, help you at the major league level, or B, help you in a big trade. And you shouldn't be afraid to view them as either. I don't think we should view I don't think you absolutely have to do one thing or absolutely have to do another thing. I think it depends on what's available, what situations open up, how teams value certain guys, and just being open to different ideas, right? Last time we had this type of core, the Yankees were scared to make the wrong trade, right? Trade the wrong guy away, it felt like. And I think that bit them in the butt, right? I think they're a little too passive. Now, whether that's because of the owner influencing and saying, hey, we don't want to spend, so we don't want to throw out another big contract. We just traded for Stan, so let's not shop in those waters. Or whether it's Cashman saying, hey, I need to keep these prospects because I really value them well. One thing or another, the Yankees have to be committed to going all in if they're going to go all in. And if they want to play their prospects, you have to commit to that too. Yes, you can kind of blend the ideas a little bit, and that's, you want to have a healthy marriage of those two concepts, but you want to make sure you're doing it in a way that prioritizes winning, because that's all that really matters here, right? The Yankees are not in a situation where they should be rebuilding, where they should be tanking, where they should finish under 500 next year. If they finish under 500 next year and it's a failure, I don't care how many prospects they play. Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge are in their primes. They're here. They're playing at a Hall of Fame caliber rate right now. You have to capitalize on that and win titles. You have cost-controlled talent right now, right? Like right now, you have a guy who's 14th in FWAR among shortstops, and I believe top 10 in Anthony Volpe in his rookie season. This is the best shortstop we've had since Didi Gregorius in like 2018. It has been half a decade, Alex. It's been half a decade since we had an above-average shortstop. You finally have one. You finally have, you have your ace. You have a pitching coach who knows what he's doing, a great bullpen, an all-time hitter. Build around these guys, go for it. But, you want to make sure you're infusing young talent, but you also want to make sure you're not passing up on opportunities. It's a good blend of both.
I think, and that's what we're going to be hoping for, a nice blend of getting the right players. And you don't have to overspend all the time to get good talent. Sometimes you just have to know where to find the gems, where to find the strengths that fit your kind of mentality, your style of play. And that's kind of what good teams do. You look at the Astros, you look at, the Rays, you look at some of these really good teams. They don't overspend all the time on these big names. They go out and they find these gems, or they trade for these gems. And the Yankees have had success doing that in the past. Like, they find some decent players, but they never turn into anything like astronomical. They're always like one-hit wonders, or like they're productive for a couple months and then the fall off is like a freaking abyss into the Mariana Trench. So, you have to figure out ways to find sustainable talent at a cheap cost. That's what separates great from bad, or even good from great organizations. The ability to find players who develop into great players. And I think that right now the Yankees have had problems. They've been focusing so much on finding good depth pieces that they forgot about finding good starters at times. Or guys maybe that are just reliable. Like, how many players on this roster are unreliable, injury prone? At some point, you have to go in a direction where you have to be able to trust your guys to play. Harrison Bader does not play all the time. Giancarlo Stanton does not play. Rodon has missed a lot of time this year. Luis Severino consistently injured. Frankie Montas injured. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, we have to go after guys that have a healthy history, or a good, clean bill of health. And that's something that we haven't done in a very long time. And that's where I'm looking at next year. If we're bringing in guys, at least they got to stay healthy, man. If you can't play, like, the best ability is availability sometimes. And I think that goes for a lot of players. And ultimately, like, we've suffered that fate recently, so it's unfortunate. But hopefully the Yankees can find a good balance moving forward. Hopefully, analytics department starts to include those variables into the equation. But guys, really excited to hear your opinions about these prospects. If you think they're going to be starting next year, if we're going to have 4 starting players in the lineup in 2024 on opening day, I think that it's possible. I think it's maybe unlikely. Maybe we'll see 2, 3 if we're lucky. But I do think that maybe they won't start. There'll be a couple guys that will be serving utility roles, serving depth pieces. The Jake Bowers of the world. That'll be Everson Pereira now. Maybe he's starting, and in perfect well he is starting and he kicks ass. But at the very least, I think that we have some young prospects with a lot of upside that could develop into starters in depth roles, instead of guys that are just like, we know what they are and they're not getting any better. And I think that's where I'd like to see, like, our depth pieces should have upside. That should be young, promising, getting at bats regularly. And I think that's at least promoting the future and not just covering up blemishes that have been kind of everlasting for a while now. So guys, always happy to hear perspectives below. Make sure to like and subscribe as always. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.